Alias, the CEO of Islamic Banking and Finance Institute, Finance Malaysia, as the moderator today. Tan Sri Anwar Ali, Professor Emeritus and President and Vice-Chancellor of Open University Malaysia. Dr. Charles Wiener of the Perdana University Graduate School of Medicine, Johns Hopkins. And Dr. Zainal Abidin Sanusi, Director of Center for Leadership Training, AKEPT. May I cordially invite Professor Dato Adnan to become the moderator for today. Give him a big round of applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to be here. One thing, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I dislike is the fact that this afternoon we're going to talk about philosophy of quality. Nothing wrong with quality, but I think to talk about philosophy in the afternoon, there's something. But never mind. We have four heavyweights here to enlighten us on the topic, and I'm sure it's going to be very lively. But ladies and gentlemen, one thing I like, the quotation. The task of modern educators is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. And the only desert I was told that is retreating instead of expanding is in Israel. So if you have read the book Startup Nation, then you know what I mean and how it is related to what we're going to talk about today, the philosophy of innovation in all aspects, particularly in education. So ladies and gentlemen, since we have effectively about an hour, I'm not going to spend much more than needed. I'll just, as mandated by the organizer, I still have to read the CVs or the summary of the CVs of our eminent speakers. Number one, we have Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Anwar Ali. He is the President or Vice-Chancellor of OUM. He has nearly 40 years of experience in academia, beginning as a tutor at UKM, where he rose to become Dean of the Faculty of Economics and later, of course, the Vice-Chancellor. He is a former Director of Higher Education at the Ministry of Education and Chairman of the Malaysian Examination Council. While holding the post of the President and Vice-Chancellor of Open University Malaysia, since January 2004, he currently serves as a member of the National Higher Education Council and National Minimum Wage Council. Dr. Charles Wiener, Dean and CEO of Perdana University Graduate School of Medicine. Dr. Charles Wiener is the founding Dean, CEO of Perdana University Graduate School of Medicine and Professor of Medicine and Physiology at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Dr. Wiener joined the faculty at Johns Hopkins in 1999. At Johns Hopkins, he was involved extensively in undergraduate and postgraduate medical education, including Director of the Bridging Sciences Curriculum, Course Director of Human Pathophysiology, Section Director of Respiratory Organ Systems, and Co-Instructor Basic Medicine. I'm glad there isn't any more medical terms here, otherwise it sounds Greek to me, difficult for me to pronounce. Dr. Wiener won numerous awards at Johns Hopkins for medical student teaching and mentorship, including the Johns Hopkins Professors Teaching Award, Australia House Staff Teaching Award, and the George Stewart Award for Clinical Teaching. Professor Dato Omar Osman, I was told by the organizer, you can skip this, because he was here this morning. Dr. Zainal Abidin Sanusi, Deputy Director, Higher Education Leadership Academy, or AKEPT, is a faculty member at Department of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, USM. He's also the Deputy Director for the Center for Global Sustainability Studies, USM. He has a PhD in International Studies from Waseda University, so I guess Japanese is not foreign to him. An MA in International Relations from International University, Japan. He's also spent 1 year postdoctoral study at UN University Institute of Advanced Studies, doing research on the multilateral environmental agreement. His area of specialization is governance for sustainable development, has a very strong interest in various issues of education, sustainable development. He is currently on secondment to Malaysian Ministry of Higher Education as Deputy Director of AKEPT. So ladies and gentlemen, we will give about 10 minutes each. So that's about 40 minutes, and then Q&A. So that will wrap up the third session for the day. Yeah? So ladies and gentlemen, philosophy, like I said, can be very boring, but can be very interesting. I remember when I was in Form 6, my teacher told me that, look at this small box. It was actually a box of chalk. He threw the chalk away. He said, what do you see inside? All of us said, nothing. Then he said, when there is nothing in the box, there is something, because that nothing is something. So I guess you talk about quality in higher education, the philosophical side of it. Okay, let's see what's something in there. So to begin our session, we can start with Tan Sri. Is it okay, Tan Sri? Okay. So please.
Thank you, Dato Chairman. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, and very good afternoon to everyone. Fellow panelists, I am very honored to be here standing in front of you. I am also thankful to the organizer for putting me in the afternoon session, because I know half of us or half of you won't be listening to me, except maybe Dato Ibrahim Bajonet, because I know he wants to question me later. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, I won't spend too much time on philosophy itself. But philosophy of quality to me means, like any other country, Malaysia too needs its educational institution to be of the highest quality. I think if we follow the development of many, many countries, not only in this part of the world, but of course in the West, European countries, America, North America, I think a lot of the development that has gone for the past 150 years or 200 years is closely linked to the quality of the educational institution, whether they are the primary school, secondary school, or the university level. But today, we spend on higher education, because I know we are all passionate about higher education. We want higher education to be not only the best, but of course, to follow the best examples of other countries. Now, from what I look and my reading for the past few weeks when I got this invitation, let me just pinpoint a few elements of quality in education. One is, of course, we all know teaching and learning is very important, very critical, so that we know what our undergraduates or even postgraduate deserve. Secondly, the quality of the academics, whether they are world standard, whether they are just average, or whether they have enough incentives to put in the best for their students. Of course, third, research and publication, we all know that. You have to be innovative, part of the faculty members, supporting staff, leveraging on ICT, and so on. But last but not least, I think I want to spend a bit of time, because given the 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the outcome for the student that come into the system, first year and so on, we want them to be, after passing through as undergraduates, we want them to be knowledgeable, competent, and of course people say that they have to have critical thinking, blah, blah, and so on. And of course, in our context, the government or even the community wants every graduate to be positively employed. Of course, we have been listening or we have been reading in our country for the past maybe 5-6 years. We have people, we have about 70 to 80,000 undergraduates or graduates who do not have employment, or the waiting period may be more than 6 months where they can get a job. So to me, ladies and gentlemen, the question is whether we really put in a lot of effort to ensure that our undergraduates become good graduates, not only in terms of getting employment, but also to have all the qualities of what we think we have. People like us who are probably old enough to think this way, we think we come from a good system before. But since we left university, we always tell our friends, since you left, the standards have gone down. So that's not good enough. So how to maintain that? So my question is, for over, say, even 2 or 3 decades, or since the 70s, is our university, whether they are premier university or the general universities, the top research universities, they are the universities of choice. Would our students that come out of school choose our universities? If they are good, yes. Would you, as parents, of course, if you have the money, you have a choice to send somewhere else, would you choose local universities, either IPTA or IPTS? And to me, this is also important because you look at the sponsors of our students. We select our best students, either sponsored by government agencies, by the banks, by Bank Negara, and so on. They, in most circumstances, they will send to what they call the top universities in UK, in Australia, in the US. But never that this best student should be sent to the local universities. So how do we reconcile this? I would have thought that it's high time, after sponsoring the student, after parents spending so much money sending their children overseas, how could they change their thinking so that they send to the best universities at home first? But I don't think it's happening. So there must be something wrong with that. I think this morning we hear about problems about quality of teaching, quality of the teaching staff, the processes of teaching and learning. These are issues that I want to relate. The other aspect of our graduates is, of course, where do they go after they graduate? When we talk about this, we talk about competition between our graduates, local graduates, overseas graduates, even private universities graduates. So what's the choice of, for instance, an employer, a potential employer? The chances are that they will choose overseas graduates or graduates from the private universities now. So these are things which I think we all can talk about it and see whether we can really put a lot of effort in terms of giving the best to our students. So we have to look in depth, because now we see that there's a lot of misfocus, even among our local universities. The top universities, the premier universities want to be top ranking in the world. Who cares? we are a country which is not up there, let's face it. Today we are top 50, the next day we are top 200, so what? Because if you're worried about ranking, the chances are that you are not worried about your undergraduates. So I think, why not we put a lot of focus on giving the best to our undergraduates, because they deserve it. Now, the chances are that in public universities, this is my observation, the students in public universities will not get the same care as students in the private universities, because in private universities, the parent will ask, I'm paying you this so much fees. The student will ask, I'm paying you so much, why can't you give me a lot of attention? So student-centeredness is more important in terms of giving the student the best. So being student-centered means you have to upgrade the teaching, the way you teach your student, the way the student learn, the facilities, the ambience in the university. So I think this all play a part. And of course, the support from the academic staff. Can you get the best academic staff or people with the best results, whether they are from overseas or local universities, to be good teachers, to be good lecturers? So this is, to me, one of the problems that we face now. The other problem, which is, of course, very relevant, is the fact that during the last 15 years, we see our education expanding exponentially. Within the last 15 or so years, public universities from 9 or 10, now we have 20. Private universities, we have almost 40, not to mention the colleges, the university colleges and so on. But the problem is, can we really guarantee that the increase in the universities in terms of numbers, the increase in enrollment, not only of local students, but we are also getting foreign students, is matched by the number of good lecturers coming into the system? Because lecturers too need to be trained, not only in terms of masters, better still PhDs and so on. So there might be a lag between increase in enrollment, increase in number of universities, there's competition to get students, but the numbers of faculty, the number of faculty members is not increasing at the rate that it should be in consonant with the increase in enrollment. So that's, to me, is another big problem. Now, one of the examples that I always mention to my colleagues is the fact that in Malaysia, there are so many business schools. Everyone have to have a business school. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a name. Even OUM has a business school, but I think they are quite okay, you know. But everyone seems to have business school. But when you look around, you tell me whether in Malaysia we have business school gurus that we look toward to. We want to listen to them. There's none. I can tell you that. My former university, where I won't mention any name, I know the people there. But they have a business school. The government just gave them 25 million 3 years ago. 2 universities get 25 million each to set up business school. But when I look at the list of the professors, I wouldn't like to discuss openly, you know, but you draw the conclusion. So, I think I better stop here, Mr. Chairman, because there's 2 more things which I want to mention. Because Professor Omar is here, BC of IPTA, I just want to ask, why are the Vice-Chancellor worried about ranking now for Malaysian universities? Secondly, why are they so mesmerized by generating income? I'm not sure what for. Public universities shouldn't generate income because they get the income from the government, no matter what happens. But what should happen is this. Every dollar that the government gives to them is well spent. Can the university now, especially public universities, tell me what is the cost of a graduate in medicine? What is the cost of a graduate in engineering? Or what are other fields? Can they tell me? Reading their annual report, I don't see any. So I think Prof. Omar has to answer. Or maybe AKEPT have to answer. So, Mr. Chairman, I better stop here because I think I have... but in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I think quality has to be put at the forefront. The quality of our graduates, the quality of our faculty members. So I think if we can answer that, the other things will come in. Ranking will come in. Your name in the branding in the world also will come in. So quality, at the end of the day, is quality. Thank you so much.
So, second speaker, may we invite Dr. Wiener?
So I'm very comfortable sitting here. For those of you who are not clued in, I'm actually not native Malaysian. But I have lived here for 3 years now, so I consider myself very Malaysian. I always get asked the same question. So yes, the weather doesn't bother me, although I don't like this haze. The food, I love the food, spicy, everything. I can take spicy, it doesn't matter. And I drive like a maniac, just like all Malaysians. I drive my own car. So my perspective, and again, I don't have a great feel for who the audience is here. I know there's a lot of administrators here for education. My perspective is based mostly on the US model, mostly within that on postgraduate education in medicine, although I think it's what I'm going to say is generalizable. And then it's within the context of trying to start a US-style graduate entry medical school here in Malaysia, where there's an enormous cultural inertia against that idea. From parents, from academics, from the government, actually the government welcomed us and invited Johns Hopkins here. So I think I have a, if not unique, fairly selective perspective on both educational systems. I was asked we were sent 4 questions to respond to, or 5 actually, one of which I can't do, but in listening to the comments here, I think that part of the issue, and I do think that higher education in Malaysia is facing a crisis. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that there has to be some deep and hard thought about the higher education system of Malaysia. And again, this is someone who I've visited probably 30 universities in the country in the past 3 years, because that's where I recruit students from. So I've visited probably most of the universities that you all represent. I've probably been there at some point. I think that, to me, as an educator, whenever I start attacking a problem, I start thinking about what are my objectives. I don't start at any kind of teaching process until I've written down my objectives. And it's not clear to me, certainly not in the medical field in Malaysia, that anybody has sat down as a group to say, what are our objectives of our educational system? What do we want to accomplish? I mean, the mission is quality, sure, but mission statements are easy to formulate because they're so generalized so as to be meaningless. It's when you start developing your objectives that it gets difficult. What do I want my graduates to look like? What do I want them to be able to do? How do I want them to think? Those are the objectives, because once you start with your objectives, you can then derive educational methods that are based on the objectives, and then you can derive outcomes or assessments that are based on the methods that follow from the objectives. So it's a it's basics, it's the basic 1, 2, 3s of curriculum development, but I think it's probably a good time to initiate that process nationwide for the educational system. And I would go back to the very, very basics of starting with my objectives. What are my objectives? To me, the main impediments currently that I have seen, and again, I'm not being critical, I'm not saying that America is the best, by the way. I see many deficiencies in America, but I also see a lot of great things in the American educational system. I think the variance is wider in America, but I think the mean is higher in terms of the average quality. But the variance is enormously wide. I think that the system that overly segregates or channels students too early at the age of 18 or something like that, even after A-levels or matriculation, is a bad system. I think what we've learned from the world is that the world changes too quickly, that young people are too indecisive, such that giving them a high-stakes examination like SPM and then letting that determine their entire life's fate based on educational outcomes, I think is a mistake. I think it puts people in wrong holes, and it doesn't allow the right people to go to places where they should go. I'm a huge believer in the US system of kind of a more liberal foundational education. I think that training people how to think rather than training people how to analyze lab tests or analyze data sheets when they're 18 or 19 years old is a better way to approach education for the future. I think if we all look at what's happened in the last 10 years, none of us could have foreseen the environment that we live in right now 10 years ago. Remember, iPhones didn't exist 10 years ago. Nowadays, you have to have a skill set that there's no way you could have gone to college to prepare for if you had an overly challenging, overly differentiated curriculum. I think the second big problem in Malaysia is parents. I think parents are evil, and I'm a father of 3. I think that expecting your child to go to school so that they can immediately go out and get a job right away after that limits your children to innovation, growth, and things like that. And I think parents should leave their children a little bit alone and let them make some choices. I know that's not a culturally sensitive thing to say, but I'm saying that from the perspective that all 3 of none of my kids are doctors. None of them are doctors. I'm still proud of them. But all 3 are in education, actually. All 3 are either teachers or in education. And then the third thing, I think, is the proliferation of commercial educational institutions in the entire world. Problems started in the United States about 20 years ago. It's now, I think, overflowed to many parts of Asia. But the moment that you start having a marginal utility of a profit for a shareholder versus a resource for a student, you're in trouble. I think education is a right of individuals, and I think that whenever profits get in the way of providing education, it's not to say it can't happen, but I think I personally believe it's a dangerous slope. I think that the comments of our former speaker saying about, on the other hand, the public trust has to be a relevant trust too, is as relevant also. I mean, the public should hold their governments accountable for their education also. So I don't want to take more than my 10 minutes because I'm interested in your question. I was asked the question, defining achievable and practical KPIs for higher educational institutions. And I would say that academics, and I've spent my entire life in academics, recoil. We get nauseous at the notion of KPIs. We hate KPIs. Academics hate KPIs because they have the potential to impose on freedom of thought, they can impede discovery, and they also can stifle innovation. Most KPIs have to, by definition, have to be quantifiable, but what many of us do as academics, both teaching and research, is hard to quantify, and the moment you start quantifying it, you limit it. It's like the uncertainty principle. I can't tell you how fast something is going, I can only know where it is. Once I try to blend those two, I have trouble doing that. Second question I was asked, so I think KPIs, you gotta be very careful. I can see why governments want them, I can see why people want them, but if you overly prescribe your faculty to KPIs, you're gonna limit innovation. Are higher education institutions for training the mind or training workers? I think both. I think in a world that changes as quickly as we are now, if you simply train workers, you're limiting your people. You've got to train the mind. And one thing I have seen in Malaysian schools is that students are not being taught to think critically enough. They're not taught to challenge authority. They're not encouraged to think critically. They are often rewarded for following in a set path. And I think we should reward our students for thinking critically and developing leadership skills as an early message. We were asked about ramifications of public university strikes in Malaysia. I have no comment on that. Is business the new education agenda? As a medical doctor, I'd say, does business even have an agenda? I'm teasing a little bit. But I would say that compare business 5, 10, and 15 years ago, and people could not have seen what is coming. So I think overly preparing for business is a mistake. I think preparing for the issues that come in business is the way to approach the problem personally. Leadership development, tackling hard problems, basic economic theory, basic management skills. And then how far does ranking matter? I come from a school, before I moved, Johns Hopkins has been the #1 rated hospital for 25 years. The medical school has been the #2 rated medical school for 25 years. Harvard's always #1. And the rankings matter. You know, everybody gets upset when they're not #1. I think rankings, I agree with the comment that if you focus on rankings, you do yourself a disservice. However, I think generalizable rankings are associated with some perception of quality, and the perception of quality is an important thing. So I think that I agree with before, let the rankings come to you, you shouldn't go to the rankings. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Doc. Well, yes, I agree with you. We are in crisis now. Higher education in crisis, and the weather also, the environment is in crisis. We have the haze. But yesterday, sarcastically, I joked with my staff. There's one group of people who enjoy the haze. These are the smokers. They can save a lot of money. They don't have to buy cigarettes. They just take a piece of straw, go outside, and suck as much smoke or air you want. So save you the cigarettes. Ladies and gentlemen, now I call upon Dr. Zainal Abidin to give us some comments. You want to sit down?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dato Chairman. Allow me to use this PowerPoint since I don't have enough power to power up the point compared to my learned panelists. Thank you for Dato Omar too for swapping the role so that I don't have to answer the questions on behalf of the ministry. Prof. Daniel was mentioning that the higher education is in crisis, but we are not. The ministry is not. We just got married with the Ministry of Education. So our new name is Ministry of Education. My argument here, I'll start with the premise that while we are talking about quality, actually on the ground what's happening is that we are being so much taken up by the process of quantity, referring to the process of assurance that is taking place. So that is my argument. And I think it goes back, when we talk about philosophy, it goes back to the father of that TQM, Deming, when he says that the premise of this quality is that quality has to be the preeminent considerations to whatever the process is for long-term success. And I think quality is not something new. It's very closely associated with higher education, just how we define and just how we operationalize the concept of quality. For that reason, I think there are several things that is happening now, or even before this, that is pushing the agenda of quality to be mainstream agenda. One of it is being obviously the issues of trust. When we look at the activities of the university, some of them are too much driven by the industrial need that doesn't really reflect of the local needs. Then we start to lose whether they are reflecting the actual need of the society, for example. And then we also have some other reason that you can go through there, and one of it is being business model. I agree with Dr. Wiener that it's nothing wrong with the business approach, it's just that how the model is being implemented at the university level. Talking about quality, I think, as the Dato Chairman was saying, that it can be quite boring, it can be quite interesting, it depends how we look at it, and definitely talking about philosophy never be an interesting point. It's a long debated issue. It can be from one extreme to the other extreme depending on who is speaking. it can be a political discussions, and it can also be as how this, I like the review of this one book, that is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. That there is no definition, but you will know it when you find it. So for that reason, I think it can be debatable issues that what is more important is that to look at the practical aspect of it. And also we maybe need to look at the difference when we talk about quality and we talk about standard. Quality is referring to the process that is taking place, and standard is the outcome. So what we see on the ground is that maybe we are reflecting too much on focusing on the standard of it, the outcome, the degree of the students, the employability of the student, while we forget about the actual meaning. When Deming is talking about the 14th principle of that TQM, it look at the process as well. So that quality part, that's what I mean, that quality become the other word for that, the quantity become the quality part, while we are actually focusing on the quality aspect. Maybe very well known to us, very well aware of this. These are the changing that is taking place, that is taking at the landscape of higher education, that demand or push as to how we look at the parameters, how we define, how we operationalize, how should quality be assured at higher education level. Like the other panel, we were given this set of questions, and these are my written answer to this one. All right, how defining achievable practical KPIs for higher educations. If these KPIs must be practical, so that is achievable, yeah. But sometimes, like when I'm still with USM, my boss is here. Somehow lately I'm put into quality tests by the Vice-Chancellor to speak together in the panel. I guess this is one of the requirements when he sent me to the agency. When we in USM, we talk about not only the KPI, the key performance indicators, we talk about intangible part, which referring to the quality, the process part of it, not only the standard part. And higher education for training the mind of training of workers, I think the mission, the vision can be very nicely put on paper, yeah, as be a tagline, but when it comes to reality on the ground, we might be driven by the process of quantifying all the requirements by the ranking, by the ISI standards and alike mechanisms. So what we're doing now is that we should be talking about nurturing human being, not producing human capital. So we're talking about the process of developing human being, the beingness of the students, rather than preparing them for the employability. Is business the new education's agenda? I think nothing new. Like I agree with Dr. Wiener, there is nothing new, it's been there, just that now it's been more intensified by different models being offered and by the intensive competition that is taking place. How far does ranking matters? I think it can go very far to the extent it can compromise the quality, right? And my last few slides is that to illustrate what I was saying is that if quality is to be done at each of this process of students, I think then we will be risking of focusing on the process, the quality of the student. We will be looking at the final standard, yeah, of the producing students. And I think this is what I'm trying to put up here. My takeaway message is that we agree with the need for quality to look at the standard, but contextualization is as critical as the issue itself, right? We need to reflect the nature of the society compared to what it is before, right? So for that purpose, the parameters, the framework that we adopting or adapting in order to assure quality has to be contextualized. I would like to further end with this one, that because of this, I guess if Tan Sri Anuwar was talking about saying that the quality of students compared to the previous time, I think one issue is that we've got to look at this one as well, that how fast is the faculty, the academics are able to reflect to the need of the students in front of them in the class, right? So with that few message, I guess I would sum up that two things that I was trying to give here is that one, we agree with the quality, but it has to be defined in our way, the parameters, the framework has to be contextualized. Yeah, and then, right, and also the operationalization has to be quite careful in the sense that we're not so much driven by by the ranking systems, yeah, so that we forgot our actual need or local need of the society. With that note, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Mouthful there. I agree with you. Couldn't agree more when you talk about contextualization. Now, our last speaker, Dato, Prof. Omar, please.
Thank you, Zainal. I think being the last speaker is probably better because most of those things that need to be covered has been covered. I think Zainal has pushed through some ideas about the philosophy of quality in higher education. But I'm going to push more to see how a university like us, small, maybe relevant to many people, pushing for world recognized status, cope with the issues, among others, quality in higher education. But first and foremost, this is what? It's a eagle snapshot of the university from coming through as if you fly over. And one of them is my house, anyway. This is USM. Now, we have 5 campuses. 1 satellite in Kuala Lumpur and 1 satellite in India. So we have main campus in Minden, engineering campus, very dedicated health campus, and also the Bertam campus, which will be rebranded soon to look at the future of sustainability. And also we have a small science park, about 15 hectares, which about also. We now have about 10,000 over staff with about 32,000 students. And growing because we were changing from 3 years to 4 years. And I think we'll be 35,000 soon. And about 12,000 is postgraduates. These are some visions that we do. And most of it looks at quality in terms of values. And we recognize quality as a value that should be inherent in the way we do things. What we will work through is for the future. This is the journey that we have moved through. And being the apex, we need to go on another curve different from the others. What is it that will push us to that curve? One of which is quality. What is it? It's very simple. If you have quality students, good students that come in, you have good quality processes, research, academics, or even extensions program, and good linkages with the industry and international organization, you will produce definitely good students. And most of it, you must also have good lecturers, academicians, not only good in research, but will be able to pull back the research to the academic fronts. And being relevant is to have extensions program that is recognized by the community. We are, and still is, taking students by ourselves. We have our own system, very stable. This year we received 20,000 applications for 3,500 places. We have finished the selections. We're happy. We hope that we can do all interviews for the students, but not to be able to, because it will increase our infrastructure and also stress to the system. But 1/3 goes to the university through interviews. So we take the good and also the most suitable one in terms of hopefully some values that we have. And we have what we call now the apex ecosphere. Everything is not anymore 2-dimensional, it has to be 3-dimensional or spherical in a way in terms of philosophy, adopted from the real values of what knowledge is about how we should look at basic principles before we can even to say that we want to be the best. I have asked some people what they think about the university, and these are their remarks. University should be the landmark for civilization, mirrors human higher learning, as Dato Ibrahim Bajunit says, and Tan Sri Professor Koo was saying. It should be the seat of scholarship, and still today, many of us still wants to go to institution that they want to be, to pursue higher education. Not any institution. They were talking about elitists and democratization. So who will go to the best of the universities? The elitists that actually can be there. Not because they have deep pockets, but because they could become the pearl of the future. And they will choose the university they can be because they are more rounded and all that. This is the National Higher Education Plan. I am not sure how it will be. I am sure it will stay. I hope it will be more enriched by the integrativeness of the National Education Blueprint. All this is talking about quality. Widening access, enhance quality. Improving quality of teaching and learning. Research and innovation, enhancing means enhancing quality. Strengthening institution of higher education means improving inner beings of an institution to be of quality. Intensifying internationalization. If you cannot be an international player, if you don't have quality, you can't even manage to convince people that you're good, you cannot be of good quality. And lifelong learning is an essence of the spread of democratization in higher education with quality. And delivery system, we probably have to take this one out because it's now integrating, not anymore. But all this means that it shows that we need to move on quality. One of the pillars must be autonomy. And being a CEO in the university, I know what autonomy I have, what I do not have, and what I don't have to cry for. You don't have to cry for something that you will not get. But there's a lot of things that you can do within, internally. My estimate is probably efficiency can improve between 50 to 20% by just having very good internalization policy and streamlining of things you do. Easily, don't have to cry for other people. Tansri, don't get more money, use money effectively. That is the answer. And I believe in that. And university autonomy must be conditions of a world-class university. It has to go down until to the laborer. I can't talk about teaching, but I can talk about how my students or my staff can take things and be responsible for it. Today, my students, with the API increasing in USM, distribute mass freely with a note of how to use it properly. They take upon themselves the responsibility of what people like us should be doing. And without instruction, they only ask the Vice-Chancellor whether they can do. I said, you can do. I don't think so. You go to destroy people by just distributing the mass. So that's autonomy. It is called trust. Many of us don't trust each other. So that's the essence. We are all wise enough. So if you ask about autonomy, it's depending on who you ask. If somebody don't trust anybody, he will talk about rules. If somebody trusts everybody, he will say, well, anybody can do anything as long as you don't make mistakes. So where is the meeting point? If you're talking about world class, must be something that you should be able to pursue, not because people direct you to an institution of world class, but because the institution of world class can respect you because you know how to take care of yourself. Or for that matter, institution is not world class. People won't go because we won't be world class, Tansri. I think that's wrong. It's very, very wrong. And that's most important. But if you talk about having quality, the quality must come from three. One is, if you want to take people of quality. Vis-a-vis what you can afford. You can ask a Nobel laureate to come to university if you can't afford it. But you must get good people to come that have heart to teach. You don't want a professor that walks through the lecture hall from here to here and then say, this is my PowerPoint, please have the power to point and leave. And no heart. I know no professor does that. But how many of us actually went and sit down in the lecture hall and see how committed a professor is to teach? Many are very committed. Maybe they have lost sight of quality, some of them. Maybe they have lost sight of things that they do. But if you go down, you will find a lot of dedicated lecturers. And therefore, they may be not world class, but they are quality teachers that teach relentlessly their students. And if they don't have the opportunity to be international, don't tell them they are not good. I don't think so. We should brand people. And this is the problem with us. When we measure internationalization, we must measure how many times you go overseas. Yeah, so that could be. The other one is academic. How many of us look the academics as a talent, as an asset to the university? They may not be. And definitely some of the financial issues also work with degree of autonomy. And everybody has been talking. I was in another conference yesterday about the role of universities and the role of governance. And you can read this. It can be very, very sensitive. For example, some of the board of directors expect university to run a business enterprise, like what Tan Sri said. Whereas we should be actually pushing for academic quality. How many times does the board talk about quality? There has been times when Senate approves academic program, the board asks where is the profit? So you will have these kind of things coming in. And we also have these ideas that university can be rich because of commercialization. Yeah, I'm not sure who is the prophets in this. But these are the things that actually, if you want to say, it's not in crisis. It is time to reflect on the basics. And the basic is very simple. Please work on quality after we have achieved the quantity. Work on the details, because the details make and complete the jigsaw, complete the building blocks. The details don't come here. The details is in the laboratories. I visited a laboratory of one school in my university. They were never, the benches were never replaced for the last 25 years from an apex university. If I don't go down, I will never know that it has not been replaced, because the report comes in that the school wants ubah suai naik taraf. You know what it means by ubah suai naik taraf? It means that you are increasing the quality, not because you have to replace the old one. So this kind of thing, unless people like us and many of us here walk down on the ground, you really don't know what is happening. One head of department in one public university told me, if a system is good, I don't have to leave my office. I said, are you sure the system is good? Of course, if not, they don't do their amanah. I hope we don't have so many of those. We must know how to go and find out the words that we are good quality. Because many of the times, the word good, only one, for simpan. You know this one? There's only one good, philosophy-wise. One good, for is kept tightly and not told the truth. And many of us, including me, probably don't know many things happens down because probably we're too busy trying to manage a university at the macro level. So the demand of university is very broad. I'm not going to go there because I want to push through about this. Ranking and rating, because Tan Sri Anwar has said. I'm not going to tell anybody that everybody is wrong, anybody is not right. But every university has its strengths and its weaknesses. No ranking will tell you the whole story of an institution. No ranking will tell the whole story of an institution. But generally, there is broad-based analysis of a strength of university, and most of it becomes the ranking and rating. And the ministry sometimes say yes, sometimes say no. This is one example when they say, oh, okay, fine, not so necessarily. So they say, we do not completely reject. You can translate that. What does it mean? Okay, but every time a ranking comes out, I get an embargoed results and ask for comments. Usually I fell silence because I don't like to comment on things that is not the making of the university. It's the making of somebody else. So if somebody ranked me 4-star, ask them to tell the nation why they rank us 4-star. Why should I be the one who is answering why I am 4-star? Cannot be. Somebody else is doing the ranking for you. At the end of the day, we have to answer why we are ranked 4-star. That's a nice world to live in. There's so many rankings, not only QS, there's CWTS, there's a National Taiwan University, there's Europe, there's Shanghai Jiao Tong, there's THE. I think there's about 11, some of which I put it here. And also there's national rating, Setara, Setara, Myra. I think not many of you know what is Myra. Myra is my research university assessment. I was talking to Dato Adnan. I'm probably the most rated Vice-Chancellor in the whole of Malaysia. I have 3 main KPIs. 1, PSPTN KPIs. 2, Research University KPIs. 3, Apex University KPIs. I think on top of my shoulder there's about 150 measurements. Of course I don't do anything, Tan Sri, apart from leading the university. But anyway, if you look at USM KPI, now until, you can tell that, Zainal, to your ministry, after June, we have already 4 university rating and audit. 4. Yeah, 4. In 1 year, they were 14. Were 14. Just to make sure, Tan Sri, you also come along. I know Tan Sri is a very nice man, but well, we treat everybody nicely. But we could have spent that money we spent to do for auditing and prepare for auditing to go to do something of quality. But anyway, I'll show you. This is something that people don't see and not produced in newspaper. QS ranking by subject, so-called the famous QS in Malaysia, in the whole of Asia and the world. I take this summary because they give a summary of the whole Malaysian universities rating in the world. 30 subject matters. No Vice-Chancellor has shown this before, I think. No Vice-Chancellor. I'm showing this. Not to mention, to compare. This is a comparison with all Malaysian universities. Anybody who wants, give me the email, I'll send you. This is what USM performed. For USM only, I'm not bothered, Tan Sri. I only want to compare where Harvard is. Harvard is number 1 in 10 subject matters. USM is top 50 or top 1 in top 30, 1 in top 40. In the top 50, USM is 1. NONE, none, Malaysian University is in top 50 in any subject. None. Only my humble university. Okay? 7 subjects in top 150 in the world. The modern languages, I suddenly was very surprised. I'm not sure how. Don't ask me how. QS rated, not me. Not me. This is people rating. Suddenly modern languages, USM top 150, first in Malaysia. I'm not sure how it happens. I'm not taking a full page advertisement on this, just to show you where we are. We are top 203 subjects. So altogether, 12 subjects. We are at the world scene out of 30. Bolehlah tahan lah. Can lah. Boleh-boleh lah. This is the other subjects rated in the world. So there's none that is rated in the world for the other subjects. But we are top of the whole Malaysian University in biological science, natural science, chemistry, earth and marine science, and history. So if I want to push for subject matter planning, I will push for that 4 and get more professors in that 4. Then we could be at that level. So rankings are relevant up to a certain extent as benchmarking where you are. But it's not necessarily a guarantee that it defines quality teaching and learning. But a university not involved in heavy research and not in the ranking does not mean that it produces bad students. It may be that they are producing good students or better students. So ranking reflects quality in certain areas. Institutional ranking gives you strengths in areas, but not necessarily you are not good. Not necessarily that you are not ranked, you are not good. But definitely, if you are ranked in the top 10 or so, I am sure you are good in many areas. So that's the issue. If you believe in quality, you need to translate into good quality. For USM, nobody comes in at less than 2.75 for arts. Nobody comes in at less than 3.0 for sciences. And one-third of our programs are interviewed for undergraduates. All science and engineering and medical postgraduate comes in at about 3.0. And for the social sciences, it's about 2.75. For those who are rated, some of the more generous gentlemen who maybe 50 or 60s don't have CGPAs. So we give them special treatment. But we want to see more students coming out to be relevant to the marketplace and job place and accepted for. So we are now working backwards with industry, quietly, no functions, nothing, with specific industries to come and actually look at our students from year 3 or year 4 and start to identify them to be interns or in some engineering discipline to push them to do masters in their specialized area. Because for your information, electronics and electrical industry is not taking any more fresh undergraduates, especially for the R&D. They are looking for skill level at the masters in electronics or electrical engineering. So we need to respond quickly, and our academic bureaucracy called the Senate need to be educated to respond to fast changes. And we are doing it in our university. In every Senate, there's a revision of curriculum of programs. And we do it because not only requirement by MQA, but because we need to be relevant with the industry and allow for flexibility up to about 30% of our curriculum to be amended internally without having to come to Senate. And that can be a good policy decision, because the infusion of the new things will not undermine the philosophy and the fundamentals of academic matters. It will just take about maximum probably 30% or so. So that is the challenge: how to get good students, how to keep good lecturers, and how to increase the productivity of the administrative and support staff to become efficient administrative leaders in your institution. And I think an institution, if properly managed, it can actually be made a good institution because the people inside are good. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.